Welcome to part 2 of me drawing Batman. The wireframe stage isn't just something that I started doing, when I started working digital or anything. It was a part of my normal process. Even when I was working traditional, I would pencil out a rough, make the page really messy on the artboard, on some Bristol board or something, and then I would use like a really thin repeatograph and then ink the structure of the figure, through the pencils. And then after that would dry, I would erase the whole board, leaving me with this really thin, wireframe. In fact, because I'd have to erase so hard, the repeatograph ink would kind of fade a bit, so it was like it'd gone from this really messy, breakdown mode to this really clean wireframe stage. And so I liked that quite a bit. That's why I started incorporating it. It just felt like a natural sort of step to also include it in the digital process. And when I'm working in the hybrid methods, either pencil hybrid or ink hybrid, usually it's the ink hybrid because I ink my own stuff, I'll use that wireframe stage as that'll be the last thing that I do digitally, and then I'll print out that structure onto the artboard and then ink traditionally on top of it, which is what you saw earlier when I was flipping through the different layer groups, and you saw the inked version of this page that was inked traditionally, but the wireframe structure had been printed out onto the artboard so that I could use the work that I had done digitally instead of having to redraw all that stuff. Here I'm doing a big cheat on his legs, which, I wanted his left leg to be extended down, but I like the shape of it, so instead of redrawing it, I just distorted, went into a transform and distorted the shape of it and got the desired effect. Here I keep flipping back and forth. It kind of looks like he was running in place there for a second, back and forth, and at this point, I think I was working, I'd been working on it for, about 20-30 minutes, something like that, and I had been working on it so close up for so long that I wanted to zoom out and kind of regain perspective on, what I had been doing. Here I'm tweaking the shape and the angle of Batman's, what will end up being his left arm. Whenever the composition gets flipped back, it'll be his left arm. And this is another trick, is to keep drawing while the element is flipped. You don't have to work on the drawing while it's at the correct orientation or the correct flip. I find that if I'm working on it in the flip, whenever I don't know, it's like whatever it is in my brain that shows me if something is wrong. Whenever I have something flipped, it works in this way as well. Whenever I'm drawing in the flip and then come back out of it somehow. And I'm explaining this, I'm sure, in a very bad fashion. There's probably some comic book artist out there who has a better explanation or way of describing this, who's yelling at their computer screen. But I don't know what it is that not every comic book artist looks at something in reverse and sees, I guess, what I see. I know David Finch does, because I've seen him do that, but not everyone will get anything out of it if they're flipping it back and forth. I do, so I do it. But whatever the case, it seems to help. So here I flipped it back to the proper orientation, proper flip. Oh yes, his belt. A belt is just kind of like a disc that gets inserted right into the center, of his body or whatever, but I wanted it to conform to the obliques and the abdomen area. You can draw a circle or a disc or whatever using the path tool or the ellipse tool or something, but I just use the brush tool usually, and so I'll basically bump my brush size up until it's about the size of whatever I want the circle or the disc to be, and then make a new layer and draw that dot just by clicking the brush tool once, and then I'll distort it into position if it needs to be an oval like it is here, and then run an action that basically makes whatever shape that I just created, changes it from black to white, and then adds a thin contour line around it. It's a very useful tool because it blocks out everything underneath it instead of then having to erase on layers underneath it. This creates knocked out shapes that stop anything underneath it from being seen. So it kind of does that step, 2 steps in one. It's a good trick for for creating hair and tatters and all sorts of stuff, really. Straps, chains. In fact, I think I use it later on to create the grapple hook line that Batman is shooting out. At this point, I think I was on the home stretch, so I started drawing real fast. Oh yes, the cape. Here instead of I had freehanded out. It's kind of hard to see the undersketch, but I was able to see the undersketch when I was drawing this, but it kind of looks like I'm just freehanding it. But instead of just using the brush tool and drawing out the shape of his cape, if I did that, the line would probably have a little bit of a shake to it, just because of how my arm or hand moved. Here I'm using the path tool and creating a very smooth, perfect arches and all that stuff for his cape shape. Sometimes if I'm doing really long ink lines, I'll use the path tool as well. And one of the good things about paths is, you can reuse the paths. Although it's not like this cape shape is so awesome that I'm going to reuse it later. But I can distort and change the shape, scale it, and do all sorts of stuff with it without it affecting the resolution. It doesn't make. Sometimes if you draw something on a layer with a brush tool and then you distort it, it'll make it look kind of fuzzy. It'll inflict pixel damage, on the pixels. So if you're using a path and then stroking that path, you don't have to worry about the pixel damage. So here I have, I just completed the cape or the cape shape or whatever on a different layer by itself. So I'll erase, through those lines so that it'll look like the cape is behind him. But at this point, that's not entirely important. I just wanted to get the shape of it down. This is another advantage of working digitally. It would be, you're drawing, and you can do basically anything with the layers, so you don't have to worry about drawing through something like you would on paper. You can just draw through it with reckless abandon, and then fix it or adjust the appropriate line work from there. Here I'm connecting some of some of his ligaments, basically, where I had moved his arm further out from his body and stuff, reconnecting his chest muscle, reconnecting his chest to his shoulder. So here I was pretty happy with everything I had drawn for Batman, and just merged the layer group so that everything that I've drawn for Batman, all the wireframe stuff, the tight structure drawings, have just been merged together onto one layer. So or the last thing I have to complete is the grapple gun, and just create a round black shape, and then with the brush tool, and then distort it to get it the oval that I want. And then run that action. So you just duplicate that same disc, make an inner lip, and then I just made an additional contour line, doing all sorts of stuff. I don't know. Moving too fast, I guess. Moving too fast for me to observe it later. Here I'm creating the bottom part of that same cylinder, basically the cylinder shape of the gun. I seem to remember at the time thinking it was a good idea to do it this way. I don't always do it this way. And then afterwards thinking it was kind of a pain because I had to clean up a lot of it, that I could have just drawn that bottom cylindrical shape without duplicating anything. And because Batman has so many little gadgets, I didn't necessarily have to be, in quotes, on model with his gun, so I wasn't looking at any reference. I was just adding some little gadgetry lines, basically. And here I'm using that trick again. I'm creating a black shape for the trigger guard, and then running that action so that I don't have to erase actually his index finger or anything. The shape that I've just created for the trigger guard will block out anything underneath it. Here I made a new layer, and I'm creating the rope line, his grapple line, where it comes out of the little hand cannon, and it's kind of hard to tell on this screen, but I just went through some steps to make to give the rope a little bit of perspective, where it's a little bit thicker at the top than at the base. Then nudged it around to get it in place. Here I just put into a layer group all of the rough and breakdown stage. And I just ran my DigiArt Quick tool, which is available on my website, that creates a cardboard cutout of the figure. It basically adds a contour line around all of Batman and created a knockout layer that makes him what I call a cardboard cutout. It's kind of like an animation cell or something, where I can put him in between other cardboard cutouts, and he blocks out any backgrounds behind him or anything. Here I'm turning off the original Batman that I drew, replacing him with the new Batman. Just kind of like the new Batman better. The old Batman had the old bat symbol that had the oval around it. Guess he looked a little bit happier as well, but I think I like this one more. So from here, since this is a hybrid ink page, I would print out the artwork, the structure that I just did, some in blue and some in black, onto artboard, and then ink traditionally from here. And if you're at all curious to see some of my digital inking tutorial that I did on my YouTube, which is youtube.com/FreddyArtMedia, I have a 3 or 4 part video there that shows inking a movie poster for an independent movie company from Red Letter Media. So that pretty much wraps up this video, going from the script through roughs all the way to wireframes. Hope it was entertaining, and be sure to check out my website, freddyart.com, or my YouTube page. I've got a whole bunch of stuff posted on there. You could waste a whole afternoon at work taking a look. So take care.